However, there is an issue here that causes problems for many of the people, and that is concerning the money that comes from the monthly salary or from utilizing a house or a shop from which one receives monthly rent, meaning that it is now income that is coming to him on a monthly basis, or that which is similar to that. Then he mentions, then the person takes this money and keeps it with him in a box or in other means of savings, maybe in a safe or a box or in the bank. Then you find that he takes some of that money and adds to it. So he spends some of it, and then when the next salary comes, he adds some to it. So then he becomes confused upon what amount he has or what he has had for a year and what amount he did not have for a year. So he becomes confused now because he's been getting that monthly salary, or maybe he's been getting rent upon a property such as a house or a car. So now he becomes confused as to what he should pay. Then he mentions, Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, then he mentions that we say that in this situation, if during the entire year the balance had not decreased to less than the nisab amount, then it is better to consider the year from the first time the savings reach the minimum amount. So now a person gets a salary, for example, and he takes it, he puts it into the bank. In the first month, let's say £600. By the second month, £1,200. So at the moment, he hasn't reached the level of nisab. What did we say the level of nisab was yesterday? 2,100, approximately, as 92 grams of gold is worth, as Sheikh Ibn Baz mentions. Sheikh Al-Fawzan mentions 85 grams of gold. But that minimum amount is approximately £2,100. So the first salary, 600. Second salary, 600. Third salary, 600, 1,800. So he still does not start counting because he hasn't reached the level of nisab. So let's say he started in the month of, in one lunar month. By 3 lunar months later, the Hijri months later, he still hasn't reached the level of nisab. By the 4th month, from 1,800, it jumps to 2,400. Has he reached nisab now? He's reached nisab. So that's the date from which he begins to count his year of possession of that amount, from the date that he reaches the nisab. So this is the point that Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen is making here. Then he mentions that we say in this situation, if during the entire year the balance has not decreased to less than the minimum amount, so here now it has gone above the minimum amount, so it has not decreased less than the minimum amount, then it is better for him to consider the year from the time the savings reach that minimum nisab amount, which is in today's money, 2,100 and odd pounds. Then the person should pay the zakah on what he has once the year has been completed. So now, what Ibn Uthaymeen is saying here, that let's say you reached that 2,400 pounds because you were paid 600 pounds. So you reached 2,400, that's the day that you start counting the nisab. So long as it remains above the nisab amount, which is 2,100 or to the value of 92 grams of gold, then what you do is that you allow the money to come into your account. So you may be spending some of it and keeping some of it, but it never goes below that 2,100 pounds. Always it is above. So now by the end of the 12 months, he finds that in his bank account, there is 4,800 pounds. So what Ibn Uthaymeen is saying here, that in this situation now, that you should pay the zakah upon the 4,800 pounds. And then he gives the reason why. So he mentions, then the person should pay az-zakah upon what he has once the year has been completed. In this way, on whatever amount a year has been completed, he will have paid his zakah for a year, meaning that the duty has been performed. And on whatever of that year has not been completed, its zakah has been paid in advance. And there is no harm in paying a zakah early. Meaning that, obviously, if you look at it from that point of view, that what you've done in reality is that even though you began with 2,400 pounds, a year has been completed and you've paid, for example, because your salary has been increasing and you've been adding to that amount, that now what you're paying upon is what remains at the end of that year coming to a completion. So it began with 2,400. It ended, let's say, at 4,800 or 5,000 pounds. Ibn Uthaymeen is saying, pay on the 5,000. Even though, technically speaking, that you are paying more than what is due upon you. But he said no harm. Why is there no harm? On the basis that it is permissible to pay the zakah early. And there's a reason behind why he said this. Number one, of course, it is established in various hadith, as Shaykh Al-Albani has mentioned, rahimahullah, from the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas and others, that it is permissible to pay the zakah in advance, even if it is years in advance, as Shaykh Al-Albani has mentioned. 2 years, 3 years in advance, it is permissible to pay the zakah in advance. But the reason why Ibn Uthaymeen has made this point here is because of that which he mentions. He said that the reason why you are paying a larger amount, he said this method is easier for him, considering each month precisely, then considering each month precisely. Because if you were to take it the other way, meaning that you will only pay the zakah upon the level that reaches the nisab amount, and a year has passed upon that nisab amount. So, for example, in 1 month it reaches 2,400. So then you wait a whole year until that month comes back and you pay the nisab upon that 2,400. But obviously, in the following month, your salary went up because you added more money to it to 2,900. So what do? You wait for the whole month till you come to that month, and then you pay the incremental increase in the zakah. Now, if you were to start doing that, as some of the other fatwa mention of Lajnatu Da'im and others, that this would now put you in a situation where you would have to keep monthly financial records of every single amount that is coming into your account and what you're putting in, what you're putting out, and that would become a very difficult affair for most of the people. And they would not be able to calculate that up until they sit down every month, and then they keep in their minds and they put in their records, and then they remember what they got and what they are to pay in 12 months from now. So then each month they'll be paying zakat incrementally upon the increase that they have upon the nisab. Now that is not an easy affair for the majority of the people. And this is why Ibn Uthaymeen makes the point that it is safer in this situation. And Al-Albani rahimahullah also made the same point in one of his fatwa. They asked him, "Yo Shaykh, I get a monthly salary and each month I get more and more money. So when do I pay the zakah?" Then Shaykh Al-Albani said, rahimahullah, he said it is better. Rather it is known from the practice of the Sahaba and the early Salaf that they would wait for the year to be completed and then pay the zakah upon the lump sum. Rather than doing financial records for each and every month that may put you into difficulty and put you into a certain amount of haraj, and you may even make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, you may give less than what is due upon you. So this is why actually, when you gather all of the statements of the scholars, this position of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah is the easiest option for the Amatun Nas, for the general folk who are not accountants and mathematicians and financial, gurus or anything like that. That they are individuals who are normal people. They get salary in their account. Maybe they're taxi drivers or they work in they work in a factory or somewhere. How are they to keep financial records of that nature? So this is why Ibn Uthaymeen's method actually is better. So as soon as your salary or your accumulated wealth reaches the level of nisab, and then you know that in this month, for example, let's take for example the first day of the month of Shawwal, that in the first day of the month of Shawwal you reach the level of nisab. Then throughout the year the money has been going up and down, up and down, up and down as you've been getting your salary and as you've been spending your salary, but it never went below the nisab amount, which is 2,100. In the time that obviously nisab can go up and down in accordance to the value of gold, but at this present moment is about 2,100. So, but throughout the year it never went below that 2,100. But at the end of the year you have £4,000. So what do you pay the zakat upon? 4,000 according to Ibn Uthaymeen, and that is safer. Because if you paid more, is there any harm upon you? Of course, it is written for you as a sadaqah. If you take it as a payment in advance for the following year, and you can keep a record of it, then you have paid it in advance. So the following year, you have also paid for it, or you have paid towards the zakat of the following year. So this is what you should do with regard to the situation of monthly salaries. And to repeat that last sentence of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, this method is easier for him than him considering each month precisely, because that may become difficult for a person.